today. Um, I'm doing this stream. It's impromptu, but it's something I think we should talk about. So let's get into it. All right. All praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God comes first. You can speed up this stream after it's finished streaming to 2x and get everything in a much shorter time if time is against you. Brandon Taylor Moore says, the veil has been pulled back on your greatest ally, America. Now you can see their true intentions. It's been like this for over 100 years, however. They've been subverting Western institutions of power covertly. This Israeli American says, if we decide to bomb America, if we suddenly decide to drop 400 to 500 atomic bombs on them at once, it could be that we'll rule the world. It could be that we'll reach our destiny, and that we'll be a light unto the nations. That woman will dance in the vineyards. They'll break into dances. We'll build a temple. We'll offer sacrifices. Maybe that's how it should be. Iran is winning. Yep, they are. Donald J. Trump said, fake news. CNN, together with the failing New York Times, have teamed up in an attempt to demean one of the most successful military strikes in history. This guy's so filled with superlatives. The nuclear sites in Iran are completely destroyed. That is false. Both the Times and CNN are getting slammed by the public. That's actually false information, by the way. I'll show you. I'll show the actual sites. You'll see. This is a little girl in Palestine. This is all about Palestine. This is all about Palestine. All these wars and everything that's happening in the Middle East is because Israel is trying to ethnically cleanse Palestine, as well as the Palestinians. And I have a lot of information for you guys today, so I'm going to try and get through with it. All right. Look what they've done to that little girl. She survived, of course. It seems as though firestorm. Breaking news. Zionist Belarusian assaults Iranian child at Moscow airport. The child whose family fled the war is now in a coma after serious injuries. Yeah, I saw he took up the child and just slammed him on the ground. He's a Zionist. He's a Belarusian. And that is evil what he did. And but God is good. Justice will be served. Noctis Raven says, I've said several times in the last couple of weeks that America is on the wrong side. See how Iran treats serial rapists versus how America protects them when they come from Israel. I'm beginning to understand more and more each day why our corrupt media and politicians tell us to hate Iran. Iran is everything opposite of what we are told they are. And Israel is everything opposite of what we are told they are. As above, so below. Everything is inverted. Every accusation is a confession. We should be allies with Iran, and we should stand against Israel. Serial rapist and killer lashed, hanged in Iran. Hollywood director, latest sexual predator to find refuge in Israel. While Hollywood's alleged sexual predators love moving to Israel. How Jewish American pedophiles hide from justice in Israel. Many accused Jewish pedophiles in U.S. flee to Israel. Jewish American pedophiles flee justified by coming to Israel. You see how Iran treats those who kill and rape and maim. A young man convicted of raping and murdering 16 boys was lashed 100 times, then hanged Wednesday in front of a large, angry crowd who pelted him with stones and scuffled with police. Now, you got to see this. Palestinian Action, which is a group, is a group in UK. They've slapped terrorism on that group, and they're calling it a terrorist organization, which is insanely crazy because this group takes action against facilitators of the genocide. That is the arms companies that are sending arms to Israel, that develop arms to Israel, they're sabotaging them and stuff. So here we go.
The activist groups.
So we're on our way to Trafalgar Square for the solidarity demonstration with Palestine Action, who have been targeted with proscription by the British government. Yvette Cooper, who is Home Secretary and also a member of Labour Friends of Israel, will soon submit a draft proscription order to Parliament. So if the law passes, it means Palestine Action will soon become a designated terrorist organisation, which means that being a member of it or even voicing support for it could carry a prison sentence of up to 14 years. This is the first time that the UK government has moved to prescribe an activist organisation using the Terrorism Act of 2000, having huge implications for the future of protests and freedom of speech in Britain. So let's find out what's going on at the demonstration and see how members of the public have reacted to this recent news. What implications do you think this prescription or this designation could have against Palestine Action?
It's unprecedented. There's never been use of terrorism legislation to go after activist groups. And it's a sign of weakness for the government. It's a show of strength, but a sign of weakness, because they've lost control of the narrative. They've lost control of the population. And when the ruling class, when the British establishment loses control of the narrative and the population, they have to revert to the law to discipline the population. The important point is it won't end with Palestine Action. Governments, states don't work like that. They don't give themselves new tools to crack down on dissent and then go back home and forget about it. They use those tools to go after more and more people. And we've already seen unprecedented attacks on journalists, their homes raided, people arrested at airports just for being pro-Palestinian. So I think this is the sign. The repression will grow in the short term, but in a sense, they're going to lose, because Palestine Action is an organisation, but it's also an idea. Now, what is that idea? The idea is that if your government is participating in genocide, you don't sit idly by. You do what you can to try and stop your government's complicity, your government's participation. That's what Palestine Action is. You can't kill that idea. That's deep in our DNA as human beings. We show solidarity with people who are being attacked and blown up with our bombs and with our intelligence. We're in a critical time now. They've announced that they're going to move towards prescription, but the process for prescription is the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has to recommend it and it has to go through Parliament. I think there can also be legal challenges, and that's why it's so important that people speak up now. If they see that the mainstream is against this, they might be pushed back into their box. And actually, very important was Sally Rooney, who's a world-famous novelist, yesterday published a story in The Guardian saying, I wholeheartedly support Palestine Action and I will continue doing that even if it becomes a terrorism offence. So they're going to put Sally Rooney in prison.
We need people like Palestinian Action, because a lot of people are just too scared to speak out and too scared to sacrifice things in their daily lives. And what they're fighting for is really important. And it is for the protection of humanity. My parents protested back in the 80s and 90s. People did acts of civil disobedience on a regular basis, and no one has ever been charged with terrorism. And this threat to put Palestinian Action in a group that's associated with other terrorist groups is so awful. It's so awful for the democracy. It's totally disproportionate.
As someone who cares about this, as you say, you've been watching all these videos, you've seen horrific things coming out of Gaza. Presumably this isn't the first protest that you've been on. Do you think that you've been listened to as a member of the public?
I feel so depressed by it all. I feel like we're not being listened to by anyone, and we're being more and more silent. That's why we're shouting out. It's because we're not being listened to, because no one is giving us a voice, and therefore we have to take things into our own hands, because no one is speaking for us. And I think people that have been watching what's happened in Palestine and watching the thousands and thousands of people being killed on a daily basis is just so disappointed that a Labour government can then turn around and threaten people with being part of a terrorist group. It really, really actually breaks my heart that we can do that.
What do you know about Palestine Action? How important is their activism been to you over the last couple?
Well, I think very important. I think that obviously direct action has a noble history. You can cite the freedom rides in south of the United States, the suffragettes. One of the reasons they want to ban us, I suppose, them, is because it's effective. Public opinion, British public opinion is overwhelmingly in favour of Palestine, and and detachment from the state of Israel. The British government, unfortunately, does not work for the British public. They work for the arms industry, the Israel lobby, government of the United States, the security services. They don't work for us, but we need to make them. This has embarrassed them, and this has a kind of fit of pique that they're lashing out partly because it works. Direct action works. It's always worked.
How has it made you feel seeing this attempted proscription in the media recently?
I think for a start, Keir Starmer should be ashamed of himself. He has not stood up for Gaza in any way.
I suppose what the media might want to do is present the, Palestine Action members, Palestine Action supporters as radicals, as far extreme.
They're ordinary people.
Who are they really?
They're just ordinary people. Can't say more than that. I mean, if I've got it wrong, which I very much doubt I have, that's what I feel. I think people who've got a heart know what damage is being done, not only to Gaza, but to the whole world.
How do you feel about the trajectory of things in this country? Does it make you worried?
It's frightening. It's really frightening. I feel like I'm pretty middle of the road with most things, and I feel like people have a right to protest. I feel sometimes people do things that push the boundaries of the law, and when things like that happen, there's due process and people are taken to court. And this is completely disproportionate. This is a peaceful demonstration. It has an element of activism, but it is totally disproportionate. To put someone in a category of terrorism means that people won't be able to speak out. People will be frightened about speaking out, and it makes me really sad.
What have you noticed happening, especially behaviour with the police?
Yeah, well, the protesters have been in a good mood, chanting and.
Before I go on with this video, I think a lot of people don't understand. It's about changing the narrative, as you will see later on. I don't know why people are so desperate and so on. Laws are made for the benefit of the people. Laws are not made just to be kept. So there's something called good law and bad law, and this is where civil disobedience comes into play. The civil rights movement happened because a young lady decided she's not moving to the back of the bus because that law is stupid. And she decided to resist that, civilly disobey that law. Laws are made for the benefit of the people. And if the people are not being benefited, and laws are made in response to what the people are saying. And when governments do not have that dialogue with the people, and they start making bad law, that law is not to be followed. You think anti-Semitic laws that they're trying to pass in the United States of America will be followed? This is supposed to carry weight. You know what these governments use? They try to use intimidation. So the devil does the following things. If you don't follow him, he first tries seduction. When that doesn't work, he then tries obstruction. And when obstruction doesn't work, he tries to use intimidation. And these are the same tactics that these demonic people are using. You think your government is your friend? They're not your friend. They don't care about you. According to this very snippet that I'm showing you, they care about their donors. So let's get to the point. Let's cut to the chase. If your government's not working for you, why do you have them in power? It is up to you to remove them. You know what's interesting? Listening to Netanyahu project regime change on Iran, as if regime change in Israel wouldn't be better for Israel. And we're getting to that. We're going to come to all of that as we continue. Let's just continue here.
There's been speeches, but the police, their blood is up for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe they've had orders to go in and arrest people and duff people up, but I haven't seen a protest like this for a long time, personally. And it goes to show it's part of the whole thing. They're trying to scare people into stopping supporting Palestine, to stopping supporting actions that are going to stop the genocide. I did see an elderly Jewish man get pushed to the floor by a police officer, and countless other people just getting grabbed from within the protesters and moved to a police van. So it's disgusting. But it goes back to the tweet that came out yesterday from the Met Police, where the commissioner said he was shocked that people people are going to come out to demonstrate and support Palestine action. Now, that's a highly irregular thing for a commissioner to do. It shows that it's a highly politicized police force. They're highly politicized. They're influenced by the Israel lobby, as we know in the Palestine action case.
Okay, I'm going to cite an example. In the 1930s, we had something called the Oil Field Trade Workers Union, and they were on a strike and they were protesting in the streets. And a police officer, he pulled aside one of the protesters, started beating him. And I am not joking when I say this. Every single person in that strike turned on the officer, and they beat the crap out of him. They killed him that day. They beat the crap out of him and trampled him to death. Okay? There were other officers there, but they couldn't stop it. Now, I'm not advocating for violence. That's not what I'm saying. But I want you to understand something. There are only so many police officers and enforcers of a governmental policy. The government members will not go down personally themselves and try and stop you. No, they'll send their enforcers. They'll send ICE. They'll send members of the FBI. They'll send military, National Guard. They'll send police after you. Okay? But you have to understand something. If you are in a tremendous, let's say you're having a campaign, a protest, whatever, the sheer numbers of you completely overwhelm anything they could do, especially if you have no fear. Do you know what a swarm of bees is like? You think you could fire a semi-automatic weapon into a swarm of bees and they won't sting you? When you overwhelm and outnumber the police, the National Guard, and they have to turn to lethal weapons to try and contain you, and even then you're not contained, what do they do then? I want you to understand the power you have, because this is the thing that you don't seem to understand. You accept certain narratives. You stay dormant. They're holding you back by intimidating you. The moment you are not intimidated anymore by anything they do to you is the moment they have lost all power over you. And that is the moment you've won. You have to understand they depend on you for every single thing, from the jobs, the skills, the expertise. What happens if the police officers say, no, I'm not doing that? And a certain representative faction of them go out and start doing it. And then the police, they go into plain clothes and they counter them. You are the police. You are the soldiers. You are the lawyers. It's you they depend on to carry out their agenda. They don't do anything. They just sit in a certain place and they supposedly law make or ratify law. But if law is not executed or carried out, it has no power. That's what you have to understand. The game being played today is the game of bully. I'm going to use my powers and exploit them to keep you in check. That's all this game is. The thing is, the guy who's playing the bully, just like Israel, actually needs you to carry it out. All right, so to make this make sense to you guys, I'm going to move from this to something else. I'm going to move from this to entertainment. Actually, you know what? I think, hold on a second. I want to show you something. Wrong thing. 1 second. So currently, I put out this post, restore the Cyberverse, right? And I show the eyes. Well, let's show the post in its completeness. And so here you see all of the 6 members of the Justice League. That's Superman looking menacingly at the Flash. There's Aquaman looking menacingly at Steppenwolf. There's Wonder Woman looking menacingly at the terrorists who were trying to abduct the kids and blow up the place. You got the Flash who's looking. Oh, by the way, the terrorists in Zack Snyder's Justice League were European people. Did you notice that? White European people. Just thought I would keep that in mind. The Flash looking menacingly at the Parademon. Batman looking extremely menacingly at, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. It looks like there's some fire or flames there. And Cyborg looking menacingly at the mother boxes, which are trying to deceive him. And he's saying, I'm not broken and I'm not alone, okay? But what's so cool is the menacing nature that they look at the camera at, and that's what caught my attention. I decided to share this. I want to show you something. So DeSita, she tried to show that the special effects weren't as refined as they should be. Look at this. This is her version of Wonder Woman here. Here's the Flash running, and I'm not quite sure what's so bad about this, to be honest with you. But I think a lot of Snyder fans are just showing the bad CGI of James Gunn's Superman movie, which is, I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. And so she tries to point out that, and I'm like, but you got zero influence. She started in 2024. This is actually a butt account. This is not a real account. She has 14 followers. I want to show you something. I want to show you something. So I have 534 likes. 11, what looks like 11, almost 12,000 views, okay? So some of the most recent replies. Gav Chabra says, restore the Snyderverse. He's an Indian guy. Shout out to you, brother. This is what these Snyderverse idiots look like. This is Jonah Jameson, who's a hater, obviously. It's been there since 2012. He only has 87 followers. Apparently, he's also a Democrat. And basically saying that the Snyderverse people are beating a dead horse, right? Okay. I got a lot of responses, and usually most of them were negative, even though I had a lot of likes. This guy says, no, we're not going to restore the Snyderverse. And I said, nah, restore the Snyderverse. This boy says it's fire, which is true. Henry Cavill already said he's not returning as Superman. That's a lie. He was fired by Gunn. Without Ezra Miller, right? It says Carmen Hurst, demon fucker. That's the name of her. And again, 2024, 12 followers. So these are all fake accounts. These are not real people. Okay. And I got evidence for that, but I'll get to that when I get to it, if I ever do. And there's actually a post on here showing one guy owning 4 accounts. So usually it's the same guy talking. Then the guy says, restore the universe of flop after flop after flop, an occasional above average film verse. Okay, the same verse that people hated at first. That one, right? The thing is, none of the Snyderverse films flopped. If you look at actually the films that I'm showing you guys, the basic cover of this video, these are all the Snyderverse films, okay? Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, okay? That's the Snyderverse, because those films follow Snyder's vision, okay? Now, Suicide Squad, I can't say it followed Snyder's vision, but David Ayer's version would follow Snyder's vision, because Zack Snyder has clearly said that it has to be the director's vision. It has to be their idea of how the universe is shaping. So if they have any studio involvement in that, meaning the studio suddenly dictates how the final edit is, how the final video comes out, as with David Ayer's Suicide Squad, then that cannot be part of the Snyderverse because it must fit in with Snyder's vision for the universe, yes, but also his philosophy, his not protocol. The word I'm looking for is his idea of how director's vision should come out. It should be the director's vision only. So when we say Man of Steel, we say BVS Ultimate Edition. It's not BVS. BVS that came out in the cinemas, that was not Zack Snyder's complete vision. Right? So Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Ultimate Edition, Wonder Woman, David Ayer's Suicide Squad, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, of all of those, the only ones that came out in cinema are Man of Steel and Wonder Woman. But Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition, it really sold a lot. So it's one of the highest selling DVD and Blu-rays, besides Man of Steel, in the DCEU. And therefore, it had been published. Zack Snyder's Justice also had been published. So the Snyderverse has raked in, I think it raked in over $4 billion. So, it is a profitable thing. None of the movies flopped in the Snyderverse. So Wonder Woman didn't flop. Man of Steel didn't flop. And I'm talking about box office wise, not in terms of critical rating. I don't care about that. And Zack Snyder's Justice League didn't flop either. Right? The remaining Snyderverse movies we want is Ben Affleck's Batman movie. We want Zack Snyder's Justice League Part 2 and Part 3. With like a Man of Steel movie with Henry Cavill. That is a Superman solo movie. We also want a Cyborg movie. We also want the Amazons movie. We also want a Flashpoint movie. So there are those things that are out there. You also have the Atom movie that was supposed to come out. And a bunch of other things, okay? Green Lantern movie. I forgot what I was doing. Yeah. So the Snyderverse has a lot going on with it that we would like to see and get done. Okay. Let me forget about this. Didn't climb up on there. Nope, but they made a mess on the ground. Okay. Anyways, I'm busy here making drinks. I say this to say the Snyderverse has been very, very profitable to Warner Brothers. It's the most profitable of all the universes. All right, Jeff Johns' universe with John Berg was the second most profitable. And then you have Walter Hamada, and then you have James Gunn right now. James Gunn is the least profitable. They haven't had a single, since James Gunn has taken charge, they haven't had a single DC movie. Now, we're not even talking about universe. You haven't had a single DC movie that has done well. Okay, not he's over for I don't know how many movies it is. I could check. So the least profitable DC movie universe, as well as just DC movies in general, since James Gunn has taken over, not a single DC movie has done well. Not a single DC movie hasn't flopped at the box office. Every single DC movie has flopped at the box office. That's how crazy it is with James Gunn. And I don't know why they're heaping praise on him, because he hasn't done a single thing for DC so far when it comes to movies and box office. Okay? He just has not. The studio keeps on losing money with him. And serious money, okay? Under Walter Hamada had Joker. That made some money. And also The Batman. The Batman also made them some money. So you had Joker and you had the Batman, and those things made Hamada some money, right? Gunn has had nothing, like nothing. Nothing has been prosperous under. Now, mind you, the Batman was not Walter Hamada's initiative. That was an initiative that formed before Toby Emmerich came on the scene. So while Jeff Johns and really Todd Phillips. That Joker movie that came out was an initiative that happened. I think it was in development even during Zack Snyder's time under Greg Silverman. So actually, it was something that was supposed to have been done way, way back when Greg Silverman was in charge of things. And so you know, that is actually supposed to be where this all comes from, stems from, and moves towards. You know, um, but you know, Walter Hamada and Toby Emmerich, they did not fund that first movie. Now, after Toby Emmerich had done a great job with the first movie, not Toby Emmerich, sorry, Todd Phillips, they wanted Todd to do a sequel. So now you prevented him from getting the first movie done. You didn't want to give him a wholesale of money for that. But now that it was successful, you want to give him a sequel. And Todd Phillips was saying, this is a one and done movie. That's how contrary these fucking people are. So they threw a wholesale of money at Todd Phillips. And he made a movie, and it didn't do well. Because it was supposed to be a one and done thing. And they wouldn't listen. The studio always is contrary. It always tries to force you to do something that you don't want to do, like creatively and otherwise. So Todd came up with something, and it was just not well received. It just was not well received. He got a lot of money for it, but of course, clueless studios and people who have no business in movies, but somehow own the financial end of things, end up forcing other people to make decisions that just don't work in their best interest. You know, when you get a hunch, this is a one and done thing, Todd Phillips, it's a one and done thing. Fuck what the studio says. You guys give up your control to these studios. I don't know if they bribe you or what they do to get you to do another movie, but if I was Todd Phillips, I would tell him no, and no means no, you know? And that's that. And you can say what you want, you can do what you want. I'm not doing it. You know, that's why you have to stand on your ethics, man. These guys sold themselves out to the highest bidder. You know what I'm saying? Oops. It's a little too much. Yeah. Don't sell out your soul. Not to these tycoons. So anyway, I say that my point is this. Restore the Snyderverse movement. They have villainized us. They call us Snyder Cult. They call us all kinds of names, right? They villainized us. But the thing about it is, we still continue because the truth is what it is. You can't hide the truth by villainizing people, and it's going to show in the box office. When their movies tank, they're still going to have to come back to what we are saying. So that's why I told you, they can make whatever laws they want to make. That doesn't mean you have to follow them. They can create a narrative, whatever narrative they want. If the narrative is not true, it's not going to come out. It's not going to work out. So you have to just strip yourself of your fear and go in there. Some of y'all will sacrifice your lives, your freedom, etc., for a moment at least in time for the cause. You cannot be afraid. You just have to step strong. You know what I'm saying? You know you're doing something that's morally right, morally correct, and you just stand on that and keep going. Too many people think self-preservation, and that is what's going to cause their demise. You can't preserve yourself from a draconian system. All you can do is conform to it. They'll try and get you to be silent. But look, when Iran responded to America and fired back at U.S. bases, all of a sudden, America's calling for a ceasefire. You know what? One, they were not successful at penetrating those bunkers in Iran. You know why America's turning against Israel? Because they realize that Iran is a different beast. The people are going to stand up for themselves and their government. You know why they're talking regime change in Iran instead of obliterating the place and doing just what Israel usually does to every nation, just storms it and kills out a whole bunch of people? You know why? Because Iran will strike back. Okay? So their hope to not sustain a whole bunch of damage and go into a war that goes for years and years and years, their hope is that they can trick the people of Iran into turning against their government and weakening them that way, and then they could invade and destroy the place. That's what they're hoping for. A bully only goes so far. When he realizes he can't bully further, then he tries to get a truce. That's what these bullies are trying to do. That ceasefire, it's a sham. Iran should continue bombing Israel. Fuck it. Continue bombing Israel. What can America do to Iran besides to damage its people and attack its cities? And when it blatantly does that, Russia and China will jump in. The other superpowers are not going to allow America to violate international law and just be a bully. They'll stand by only so far. But when they realize this bullyism is going to a certain level, they're going to step in. They're obviously going to step in. They already have stepped in, actually. They're just not saying it openly, but they've stepped in already. America has blatantly invaded other countries and other countries' sovereignty. Countries that they could bully where they knew they could get away with it. You're not going to get away with that just like that with Iran. You're just not going to do that. And they know it. They know they can't just get away with that. Russia and China won't allow them. And they also know Russia and China are economically and militarily not in the same league as the other nations they've been bullying. Okay? They talk about averting a world war. I'll tell you why. Because they know they get their ass kicked. How just happened? What's going on? Oh. Okay. You're probably wondering what I'm doing. Well, I'm blending it up finer. See, it's much finer. Probably has a lot of flavor too. I might get 4 of these. All right, so I'm saying all of this while I'm streaming. There's a lot I have to go through this stream, so I'm trying to get through it as quickly as possible. Okay, the rest is fine. So I have a ton of peanut punch here. Yes. So I can carry that along. Really good. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, baby. All right. So as I said before, I'm basically showing you the same principles that we apply in Restore the Snyderverse. It's the same principles that you just need to apply to resistance. They've passed anti-Semitic or tried to pass anti-Semitic laws, trying to make people who speak out against the atrocities in Israel and Palestine, they're trying to incarcerate them, and it only can go so far. When the legal arms, when your protests are in line with the law and not in line with their bad law, you will prevail. Because remember, it's about convincing you or scaring you into inaction. And thank God for the hawks out there that are watching out, the watchers who are watching out for what they're attempting to do, the sadistic things they're attempting to do. Okay? So that's why when I talk about this stuff, I talk so passionately about it because I know guys like this guy, okay? Guys like this brother here. Guys like this brother here. They're average, everyday people. But accumulation of us, as is the case right now, and a consensus by us is what is good, what is right, and what is just. That's true democracy. That's what's supposed to drive our governments to do the will of the people. Remember that the will of the people is the face of God, or right? So if this is where true democracy is happening in the world, it's not our governments are not democratic. A lot of them are oligarchic, right? They pander to oligarchs. Okay. So this is what's happening. Now, the pushback here is fake, as you know. These are WB hired accounts and shills for WB and haters of Zack Snyder who come here and make responses. But the fact that they're talking so loud and they're reacting so much shows me they're intimidated. They're intimidated by the movement, which they know. They try to show that they have share numbers by aggressively going on every post that speaks about James Gunn's crap that's coming out. I'm trying to respond. Look how many responses they have, negative ones. I'll show you a couple of them. Once you see them blanked out, that means it's a negative response. But they're not real people. Shout out to Simba Takonga. All right? They're not as numerous as they make you feel. And it's the same thing with Zionism. There are a lot of Zionists, Christian Zionists and Jewish Zionists, atheistic Zionists, but they're not as much as you would think, especially today, in the world today. They're not as much as they make you think. They're in key positions, but they're not the majority of people. And especially now, very few people identify with them and want to be a part of their system. Okay? And that's very good. All right? That's very good. So you have to understand these things. Okay, let's get to what I was speaking about, because there's a lot of information I want to share with you guys. In France, Mayor Anne Vergnac has the Palestinian flag raised in the town hall as a sign of solidarity with Palestine. You know, the French people supports Palestine. The oligarchy in France and Macron and certain members of the government of France, they're Zionists. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, of course, is speaking on this very issue. George Lucas, Star Wars, same thing. When George Lucas was doing it, that is. Fight Back Podcast says, why is anti-Semitism on the rise? Smushers is mad they killed only 400,000 Palestinians. Smushers might be justified and moral to cause 2 million Gazans to die of hunger, but the world won't let us. So that's the kind of sicko that says he's speaking on behalf of all Jewish people. And the people who conflate Judaism with the state of Israel and the support for it, they're going to be anti-Semitic. In fact, I have an anti-Semitic joke that's coming up in a minute, and I'm going to tell you it's purely anti-Semitic. I love this. These are pictures of families in Gaza amongst the ruins. Little boy got a brand new bike. Thank God for that. It's for an adult, though, not for a child. I'm happy. Your donations really are helping them. I don't know how they're getting the donations into there, but your donations are helping. All right, so hold on. This is from Man of Steel.
That's the working name.
Could very well prove to be permanent, though.
¿Qué podemos esperar de Estados Unidos?
Okay. There's a difference between trying to act like Superman and being Superman. Henry Cavill is Superman, Zack Snyder. And of course, also Christopher Reeve said the very same thing. Being Superman is not just saying, I'm a hero. No, you have to walk into the shoes of this alien who comes from another world. He's orphaned, but he's been adopted by human parents. How does it feel to be somebody who's the other, the foreigner, the stranger? And how does this open the stranger's heart to the world? So there's a lot going on with Superman, as Christopher Reeve said, and I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to see a side of Clark Kent, a side of Kal-El we haven't seen before. The difficulty of adjusting and fitting in to humanity, physically and also mentally and also spiritually. I thought it was just really cool. Mohammed Jawad is literally living inside of Palestine. And there's his little baby girl there. And they're watching the people go for food in the streets. Watch it. Lines for food, for water, for medicine, even for hope. Enough humiliation, enough pain. We become strangers in our own lands, searching for dignity at the bottom of suffering. That is Mohammed Jawad. I've been corresponding with him for a while. And shout out to, I'm going to talk about my Israeli brothers and sisters who are really speaking up now. They've been tremendously outspoken. And they're about to find out that they're not alone. Owen Schroyer, make no mistake about it. Mamdi's win in New York City tonight is the first sign of Israel fatigue reaching the voting booth. Yes, they will literally vote for a foreign-born socialist as long as he doesn't knee for Israel, as Kumo did. This will reach 2016 midterms and 2018 presidential. So if you don't know, Mamdani, who is a Muslim, and I don't know where he comes from, I don't know what country he comes from, he's been voted into power, and his Jewish colleague works along with him. Now, I tell people, hold the brakes on that. That's all I'm going to say about that, but we will see how things go. All right, he's a politician. I don't trust him. I certainly don't trust Bernie Sanders. I certainly don't trust Alexander Ocasio-Cortez. I don't trust those people, okay? Because when it was time, when the needle hit the fan, when the shit hit the fan, they weren't there. Rebel Moon Theory says, all I can say is Zack Snyder is the blueprint. All right. Here is this clip from James Gunn's movie. Oh my God.
Name.
Could very well prove to be
What's it called again?
Justice Gang.
The working name.
Could very well prove to be permanent, though.
What's it called again?
Justice Gang.
That's just horrible. Sean Greenfield, he says, oh, okay, let me go to this. So Donald Trump said they annihilated, the nuclear plants, blah, 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 blah. So if you look here, this is a satellite image here. I'm going to go to the actual article. I'll translate it in a second. Can you translate? Yes, thank you. Okay, so this is the Fordow nuclear enrichment facility before and after the American attack. You see any significant difference anywhere? You don't? You do? You don't? If you can't see a difference, It's because the bomb, I think it went underground and then exploded. So they dropped it at a specific area and it supposedly exploded down there. Because there's no significant difference from the top, clearly. So the Iran Foreign Ministry said nuclear facilities were severely damaged. I don't know how true that is. What really happened at Fordo? Trump declared that the Iranian nuclear program goes back decades and revealed people on behalf of Israel visited Fordo. He attacked the American media that denies claims that CNN has no credibility. The New York Times spread fake news. However, earlier, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Abaki confirmed in an interview with Al Jazeera that Iran's nuclear facilities were severely damaged following the U.S. strikes. He said the B-2 bombers carried out a significant attack. Earlier, Trump said that the Israeli people. I didn't see anything like that, by the way. This is by the way, this site is Israeli news. Earlier, Trump said that Israeli people had arrived at Fordo nuclear facility and reported that it had been completely destroyed before his meeting with the leaders at the NATO summit in The Hague. The American president added that Israel is preparing its own report on the results of the attacks on the nuclear facilities. Meanwhile, the American ABC network reported, citing two Israeli sources, that the results of the attacks on Fordo were really not good. One of the two sources told the network that it was too early to determine whether the operation was successful. The sources also said that they did not know how much enriched uranium was transferred from the nuclear sites before the attacks carried out by Israel and the United States, and how many centrifuges remained and could be operated. So basically, they destroyed some centrifuges, some infrastructure. They got none of the uranium. Most of the scientists were not harmed because they already had evacuated Fordo. They also had evacuated the other two places that U.S. had bombed. And I guess there was some correspondence between Iran and the United States concerning that. So Trump was going to get his free pass to bomb the place. And even so, the infrastructure is not that badly damaged, I heard. So anyway, this is an Israeli newspaper. Consequently, the White House issued an unusual statement, ostensibly on behalf of the Israel Atomic Energy Commission, which read, "It is estimated that American and Israeli attacks have delayed Iran's military program for many years. The achievement could continue indefinitely if Iran does not gain access to the enriched material." An hour after the White House, the Prime Minister's office also distributed the statement from the Atomic Energy Commission about the damage to the nuclear program. And there it is. That's the Israeli. At a press conference held by the American, all this is, by the way, fabricated. I just want to let you know, Iran had no nuclear weapons program. They didn't have it. They were enriching uranium. I'm sure they suspected that America would try and attack them at some point. So they had the facilities underground. But to say that they were conducting a nuclear program, they weren't. Anyway, at a press conference held by the American President Trump, so this is all trumped up shit, okay? Trump addressed reports that the American attacks on, and if you look at the pictures, it doesn't look like anything happened, okay? Anyway, that's besides the point. So either our eyes are fooling us, or these guys are just, they did so cleanly that nothing happened. It's just bullshit. Iran will not be making bombs for a long time, he said. When asked if the United States would attack Iran if Tehran rebuilt its uranium enriched facilities, he said absolutely. Earlier this month, IDF spokesman Brigadier General L.I.V.E. addressed the assessment of the extent of damage to Iran's nuclear facilities. "We met all the objectives of the operation as defined for us," Brigadier General Defrin said in an update to the media. "It's still too early to determine the results of the damage. The assessment is we significantly damaged the nuclear program, set it back years." However, ladies and gentlemen, as much as they say they set it back years, I found out, I guess this is not the report that said that it really would take a couple months for them to get back online. It's not like they really got significant damage, but of course, the Iranian foreign minister, in order to keep peace and to keep their program under wraps, would agree with President Trump. Of course, they're going to bullshit you. But no, they have not been significantly damaged. And so Cheryl Greenfield says it can't be, really? But Trump said that the Israeli agents went in there and the place was destroyed. Shuck, shuck, shuck. A bunch of lies. It's just propaganda. With respect, with, with respect to James Gunn's crap, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen,
Tyler has more commanding presence. That is such an eyesore. The commanding presence that Henry Cavill had with Superman, even Tyler has more commanding presence than what they're doing with him. I believe Corn Sweat can. It's just the way they've dressed him, the way they portrayed him, the lines they're giving him. You know, James Gunn said this Superman's a weaker Superman. He's not more of the all-powerful type. And that's fine. But he can still be commanding while being weaker. And he just seems, other than the physical strength being weaker, which is what he seemed to be talking about, this is also a weaker-minded Superman. That is...
Ultra biased Snyder fan says, stop dancing around and say James Gunn cannot depict masculinity on film. It's not toxic to say. Not everyone wants adults having the mannerisms of teens like Disney movies. An Israeli airstrike targeted a group of civilians at Al-Rashid Street west of Gaza. A number of injuries were reported. At least nobody died. That's the better thing. This is crazy. You ready for this? Here we go. First of all, Zoran Mamdani is new mayor of New York. Here you can see why. He's the only American first candidate. Zionists are seething. America is waking up. Now remember, this guy is going to be the mayor of New York, ladies and gentlemen. Not the mayor of some city in Haifa or in Tel Aviv, okay? Here we go.
Mr. Mamdani. I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not as a Jewish state?
No, as a state with equal rights.
He won't say it has a right to exist as a Jewish state. Be very clear.
And his answer was no, he won't visit Israel.
I said that.
That's what he was trying to say.
No. Unlike you, I answer questions very directly.
All right.
My goal would be to take my first trip to Israel. My wife's life work in this area means a lot to our family, and it could coincide with my young son Miles' bar mitzvah. If you'd like to have his bar mitzvah.
Okay, but I'm giving up the first foreign visit by a mayor of New York is always considered significant. Where would you go first? Left, right, the Saturdays.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Mr. Cuomo?
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel, followed by my 5th trip to Ukraine, 2 of our greatest allies fighting on the front line.
So this is the kind of stupidity. I'm like, are you serious, brother? It's just New York. How are you going to Israel?
Of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani.
Trump, Israel was hit very hard, especially in the last few days. Israel was hit really hard. Boy, those ballistic missiles took out a lot of buildings. That was Donald Trump. Here he is.
Hit very hard, especially the last couple of days. Israel was hit really hard. Those ballistic missiles, boy, they took out a lot of buildings.
And remember, that's what Iran's really known for. It's for their ballistic missiles. And, you know, as much as they said Israel took out some of the ballistic missile sites and blah, 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 everybody knows. In fact, let's look at what Tel Aviv looks like right now. Here we go. This is Tel Aviv, ladies and gentlemen. They took out that whole, they're in the ruins of that building. It's a whole fucking building they took out. I'm going to show you some more. Humanity has failed, says Saleh Mohammed. Gaza's children will begin to die of thirst. I hope not.
Than what they're doing with him. I believe Corn Sweat can. It's just the way they've dressed.
Kenneth says, actually, he's replying to Lethal Geeks, which is this here. Because Henry Cavill is Superman, the best cinematic Superman since Christopher Reeve, and David Cornsweat is not inspired or seems no interested in playing Superman, not playing the character to his strength and talent. And Betty Blanco says, boom. Let's just keep this moving. So Jason Hinkle, he's breaking down how Israel failed and how the U.S. failed as well.
Has achieved victory. Breaking news, everybody. Israel's war on Iran is officially over, and Iran has achieved victory because all of Israel's major goals resulted in total failure. For starters, Israel set out to achieve regime change in Iran, but guess what? They failed. The Islamic Republic of Iran is still there. Ayatollah Khamenei is still there. The IRGC is still there. And the Iranian public is unified now more than ever before. Even people who previously opposed the government in the Islamic Republic are now cheerleading it, and they will be at victory celebrations in Tehran and all across the country of Iran tonight. Second of all, Israel and the United States set out to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities and programs, their uranium enrichment sites. That obviously failed. They failed to destroy the sites that they targeted. And even before they targeted those sites, Iran had removed the centrifuges and uranium and taken this all to undisclosed sites that are even deeper than Isfahan, than Natanz, than Fordow nuclear facilities, which are all still standing. Okay, even international observers are saying that these sites were not destroyed. But Iran has other sites that are still ongoing and deeper, and they are newer, and no one knows where they are. So they failed to destroy Iran's nuclear program, their nuclear facilities. And frankly, I think they just strengthened it and strengthened the international partners like North Korea, who hope to embolden it and strengthen it and possibly even give it nuclear weapons. That is the word on the street, that North Korea has offered this to Iran. And lastly, of course, you have to look at the fact that Israel's Iron Dome and their air defenses completely failed, okay? You have countless IDF bases and targets which were hit and struck very hard, in some cases completely destroyed. All of Israel's major air bases, military bases, which were said to be the most secure military bases on the face of the earth, they were all targeted, not once, but routinely over the course of the last week. Several Israeli intelligence units were also hit. Intelligence Unit 8200 and several other IDF intelligence units were struck and destroyed by Iran. Their headquarters were targeted with absolute ease. Now, you also have Israel's top two military intelligence research firms. Their top two institutes were completely destroyed and leveled to the ground. Not to mention, of course, Israeli infrastructure was seriously damaged. Countless power stations were targeted. Okay, complete failure to defend their own country. The Iron Dome was humiliated, overwhelmed, and exposed. Okay, this was, in technical terms, a stalemate, but really a stalemate that resulted in an Iranian victory. Iran was going up against two nuclear superpowers, the strongest militaries in the world, and they came out relatively unscathed, and Israel failed to achieve all of their major goals.
It's important that Iran understands Israel will not honor this ceasefire, and they are planning an attack on Iran. They're just gathering resources to try to plan this attack on Iran. I listened to, I forgot what the guy's name is on YouTube, and he came from Iran, and he's talking about, it's possible that, the Iranian people might turn against their government and, create liberation in Iran. And I'm going to say this again. There's a reason he's not in the country, for starters. I think his name is Patrick David or something like that. Because you're an Iranian, and your country just got attacked unprovoked by two countries, Israel and the United States. Both of them are wrong. Donald Trump saved face by, trying to get a ceasefire organized, a ceasefire that Israel will not honor. We all know that. They're going to attack Iran again once they can get back some strength. Iran punished Israel in such a way that strategically it has taken away a lot of its resources. Now they still have combat forces, and in Iran right now they're cracking down on Mossad and all the agents in Iran who are still trying to threaten Iranian officials, which is the funniest thing in the world because they have hung one Mossad agent already, and they're tracking down the others. The Iranian counterintelligence is really clamping down on these guys. Iran has been very nice, just like Russia has been very nice to the United States. Let me explain something to people. If Iran wanted to take over the Middle East, they done already would have done it. Okay? Their greatest opposition would be Turkey. Israel would have been run over, and they'd be waging a war with Turkey, and we'd see who would come out on top. Okay? If Iran decided to wage war against Saudi Arabia, they'd run over Saudi Arabia. Okay? They'd run out of the Qataris, they'd run over the Kuwaitis, they'd run over Jordan, they'd run over Egypt. Okay? Iran is the most powerful Middle Eastern nation in the Middle East. It wasn't Iraq, it was Iran. And I'm telling you right now, if all that the United States is alleging, if they can get nuclear weapons, blah, 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 blah. Listen, if Iran wants to take out the Middle East, they can. They're very capable of doing it. Iran single-handedly could take on every country in the Middle East and still survive. Okay? So I do hope that the United States is warned. Okay? Trump has made an arrangement with Iran to make him look good, make Iran look good, and he's turned against Israel, talking bad against it. But we don't buy into that because Trump was the one who facilitated Israel's unprovoked attack on Iran. So why wouldn't he do it again? And to be honest with you, Israel has lied and lied and lied. But anyway, I want to show you guys the damage that was done in Israel. This is Tel Aviv you're looking at. And you see that big old smoke down there? Let me blow it up so you can see. I don't care for this is Israel. This is Tel Aviv. Look at the buildings. Look at that big smoldering bunch of smoke in the middle of there. That debris. There it is up and nice and close. That's the devastating damage that the Iranians have been consistently doing to Israel. Okay? You can still see the debris in all the buildings backing up the place. You got ambulances and stuff. And believe you me, a lot of people lost their lives. All right? This is a gentleman named Benny Aharon. And he was in Gaza. And he is literally being caught on video mocking, and he also sniped and killed children in Gaza. Actually, he's one of the people who was responsible for the death of Hind Rajab. So wherever he is in the world, you're wanted, buddy. And they're going to arrest you for the crime of killing Hind Rajab. You are one of the people who are responsible for that. So, his name is Benny Haran. Commander of the 31st Brigadier is responsible for the death of Hind Rajab and her family. So the United States government couldn't tell us, but we have found out through investigations. And now we're coming for his ass. And we're coming for his whole platoon. It says the world will remember the country that put Israel in its rightful place. Oh, it's not done. It's not over, ladies and gentlemen. It's about to escalate even further. Trump is suddenly shocked that the Israeli regime broke a ceasefire when that's literally their whole, status quo. That's what they do. Trump doesn't think strategically. You're watching. He looks at what's in the best interest of himself. That's correct. Here, a max exodus of Israelis going to Cyprus. This lady is joking around. Okay. This is Irish Emma Shireen, MLA, as the Assembly passes Sinn Féin's motion condemning Israel's genocide. So in Ireland, they're going in. This is Sophie Van Tan. She reports from ARD. For ARD from Israel, she shares experience with the censorship there, explains how it creates false narratives. That is to say, she's saying that you can't report on military targets being destroyed by Iran, but you can report on civilian infrastructure that was destroyed. Since there's very few civilian infrastructure that was destroyed by Iran, it paints a very biased picture that Iran is just attacking civilians when in reality it's mostly attacking military targets and obliterating them, as you could clearly see. Shout out to Miss Rachel here, who just has a love for this little girl who's Rahaf, who's a Palestinian child, and she is playing with her. So she's really doing her bit. This is a little Palestinian child from Gaza. She delivers a poem for the occupiers. She says, "Live wherever you want, but do not live among us. Die wherever you like, but do not die among us. For we have work to do on our land. We have the past here. We have the present and the future. So get out of the country or land or sea, or wheat or salt or wounds, everything. And leave us from our memories, or you who pass between fleeting words. O you pass between fleeting words." Of course, people who are born in a land and been displaced repeatedly, obviously they would want the same happen to their enemies. So it's not really surprising. Double Down News says, "I consider Palestinian action heroic people, and that's how they'll go down in history." Holocaust survivor Stephen posts message of solidarity to Palestinian action. Here it is.
Important that as a Holocaust survivor, I've seen the impact of indifference by the public, and it's incredibly dangerous. It does allow the full-blown fascism to occur. It is important that the general public does not look the other way. After all, we can see some countries already further down the route, like in Germany, where you are not allowed even to show a Palestinian flag. I consider the Palestine Action heroic people, and I think that's how they will go down in history, as appropriate resistors.
The mainstream media doesn't tell the truth about UK and Israel and our government's role in the horrific genocide that's happening. But alternative media, some of it does. Double Down.
Check out Double Down News, yo. That's how they greet the Israelis. Stephen Colbert, does Israel have the right to exist? Even Stephen Colbert, asked a dumb question that has nothing to do with New York. What did he hear from this Jewish guy?
From my grandma's side was murdered during the Holocaust. I can tell you one story. My grandma is actually Jewish, and my entire family from my grandma's side was murdered during the Holocaust. And a lot of my grandma's friends, they moved to Israel right after the Second World War. But from day one, when they started moving there and started to inhabit the Palestinian land, supported by the British, of course, my grandma already said, like, this is so wrong. And from day one, she was like, yeah, what you are doing, it cannot be justified. Because who says that you have the right to go there? Of course, what happened to the Jewish population in the World War was horrible. It was disgusting. But the violence that was used and the suppression of all the people in Palestine that happened after that was something that also my grandma, who lost her entire family, could not justify. And I think that says a lot. And she also inspired me to just have this opinion. Yeah, she's from the Netherlands also, but a lot of her friends, because she had no family anymore, but a lot of her Jewish friends, they moved to Israel and they told her about how fantastic it was. But from day one, she was like, yeah, but she didn't accept. She didn't accept. No.
It never happens to me. I want to wish you well. Doesn't matter that you try to go by foot, that you try to go by boat. But please do that. Do that because you have to be at the front of us. Like Tiago kept on saying on the night they were assaulted. On the phone, he kept on saying, we are together. We are one. And I realized that this is the thing that we keep on saying, that we have been saying for more than 600 days of genocide. We are one. We are together. And so the first thing I want to say, I wish you well. And I wish you to be safe on your journey because you are taking on your shoulders a responsibility that should not be yours. It's of our states. It's of our states the responsibility, the legal obligation to break the siege, to break the blockade. And because they are delaying and delaying, everyone, now we are taking this responsibility on ourselves. You are taking it on yourselves. And for that, I thank you.
Understand, our governments are failing us, and they're all complicit. Most of them, at least. All right, let's go.
You can lobby for foreign governments in America? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you register legally for transparency and all that. Okay, so everyone that's lobbying for foreign governments is registered? Yep, definitely. Okay, so then no, don't even go there. But I mean, you said everyone. No, it's very different. It's not all the same thing. That's very normal, and that's not suspicious at all. I just don't understand why. Shut up. But why don't they? Look, buddy, you're about to play a game of hide and seek, and no one's gonna find you.
That's real talk right there. Here's Greta Thunberg about the relation to German activists.
To discredit everything that FFF International were doing. And eventually, FFF Germany went out and publicly stated that they distanced themselves from FFF International and me for saying that bombing people is bad, apartheid and occupations are bad, violating the most basic human rights, committing war crimes is bad, no matter which country you are. And since then, I have basically cut off all my contact to all activists within FFF Germany. What I experienced is nothing compared to what POC people and activists, especially with Palestinian backgrounds, are experiencing. It is about racism and about wanting to uphold a status quo where you are prioritizing being liked by the mainstream public rather than doing what is actually right or standing up to your values. Then you become a villain in their eyes because you're not saying what they want you to say. In my case, I was seen as a small girl who was saying that, we should save the planet. Like anyone can get behind that we should save the planet. And then when we're talking about decolonization, when we are putting that in practice, then you are actually challenging the status quo by naming the problems like capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and then you are not likable or comfortable anymore. Since then, of course, there has been a very clear silencing. When they invited me to events, they would say, okay, you can talk, but you cannot talk about politics. First of all, how do they expect me to respect that? Second of all, what mindset do you have if you think that the climate crisis is not political, basic human rights are too political and too controversial, we don't want to risk a shitstorm. In the case of activists within FFF Germany, if you as an activist are an activist but too scared of saying things that will make people uncomfortable, then why are you an activist in the first place? If you claim to care about the climate crisis, but only care about the future of white children, because that's being the dominant narrative here, then you should not be able to call yourself a climate activist, because if that's not pure racism, then I don't know what is. If we cannot recognize and sympathize with all the countless of colonized and oppressed people today, then there's no justice to be talked about. I also want to address that recently we have seen some people speaking out. What is it they call it? The human suffering in Gaza? Or that's still moving within the frame of what is acceptable. And now it is acceptable to say this. Okay, then I'll say this. That's not how you should navigate your morality.
100% correct. This is a this is an AI generated sort of infomercial. It's pretty funny. Let's watch.
Come on, son, it's time for us to all go. I'm on the streets of America where Gen Z males are being drafted into the US Army to fight in the upcoming war against Iran.
This sissy generation don't know which damn bathroom to use, but by God, they'll know which trench to die in.
Come on, son, it's time for us to all go sacrifice ourselves for Israel.
While we stay here and keep running the banks, these brave sons of America are going to fight for us.
I need my emotional support, Faith, bro.
I'm actually exempt because my dad's a congressman, but like, I support the troops from the Hammons.
Wait, there's no Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, what's the password? They didn't even let me bring my trauma journal. This is fascism. Actually, it's they/them, Sergeant. Please respect my pronouns.
I don't want my children to die for Israel.
Do not be selfish. Your children will go to war, my people.
So that's AI, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen. This is the guy that New Yorkers voted for. I don't know what to make of that. Here is ex-Prime Minister of Israel assassinated for seeking peace. This is Yitzhak Rabin.
Then, as Rabin was leaving, that's him coming down the ramp. The man in the blue t-shirt approached. 3 shots from behind.
The Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, the architect of the Middle East peace process, has been assassinated.
The assassin, a right-wing Israeli Jew, Yigal Amir.
Truly shocking news from the Middle East tonight. Israel's Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin has been assassinated. Evening spent dreaming of peace turns into a national nightmare.
Outside the hospital, the crowd began to chant, "Bibi is a murderer."
Bibi, that's Benjamin Netanyahu.
The sign says, "Bibi, Rabin's blood is on your hands."
An assassin has taken yet another world leader away from us. It was just after the biggest peace rally in Tel Aviv.
Rabin's widow blamed Netanyahu for contributing to her husband's death.
Yitzhak Rabin has also produced shock in the Palestinian community.
And said so on worldwide television.
Your husband pointed the finger at Mr. Netanyahu and said, "You must stop this incitement."
Susan Sarandon has been a long-time activist for the Palestinians.
Important to keep pressure on our government, making this genocide possible. The whole world, including international reports, have said that there must be a ceasefire and that a genocide is going on. I believe in self-determination. The Palestinian people always had. What is going on now is unbearable and a genocide, and I want to make sure that I do everything possible because my tax dollars are paying for the illegal weapons that are going to make this slaughter possible. So I'm here today to tell my government that this is unacceptable.
She's a hard fight soldier. Okay, this is the anti-Semitic.
Been kicked out of 109 countries. Do you guys think 9/11 was an inside job, or do you think it was the Jews? Found out the Jews have been kicked out of 109 countries. That's a lot. At a certain point, you got to ask yourself, why? Was Hitler really rounding them up just because they're mildly annoying and cheap? 109 countries, that's like a woman telling you that all of her ex-boyfriends beat her. At a certain point, you got to ask yourself, maybe she was a Jew. Do you guys think 9/11 was an inside job? Or do you
This
think
is
it
an
was the Jews?
anti-Semitic joke too. This is
Found
what
out
I
the
think.
Jews been kicked out of
This is what
109 countries.
some Jews are
That's
really
a lot.
afraid
At a
of
certain point, you got to ask
because
yourself, why?
not all Jews are like that. You're talking about Zionists, you know what I'm saying, and Zionist Jews particularly. Yeah, and they're They're a cold-blooded lot. Here's the indigenous people from Israel.
I was born in Baltimore.
So you're American?
Yes.
Where in America?
I was born in Baltimore.
Okay. And how long have you been living in Israel?
10 years.
Why did you move to Israel?
That's a really long story. My husband grew up in Switzerland, and we never wanted to stay in Switzerland, and so we're here. And being a Jew and American in Switzerland wasn't as easy as it seemed, so we wanted to leave there.
Alisa, where are you from?
Russia.
Russia. Why did you make Aliyah?
Because I'm studying at the Ariel University in my master's degree.
Oh, yeah, but why make Aliyah? You could have done that as a tourist, no?
No, because the government is paying for my studies.
And where are you from originally?
Philadelphia.
Okay. Well, you're related, I'm assuming.
I'm her daughter.
Okay. So, and how long have you been here?
15 years.
Okay, and how is it? Compared to the U.S., what would you say is really different?
Everything. The culture, the people, acceptable standards of politeness.
Oh, yes. Why did you make Aliyah? And from where?
Because I wanted to raise my kids Israeli.
Okay. Were you born here?
No, we were born in
In New York. And how long have you been here?
almost 11 years.
11 years. Okay.